Hey everyone. So as I continue to throw these sort of micro videos to you, another one that came up is handling Python and all your dependencies around Python. So the good news is Python's not going anywhere. Python's a really mature language right now. Version 2 has been officially dropped, but it's still sort of in use out in the wild. But if you're staying moderately current, you're using Python 3.7 or 3.8. I think I'm mostly transitioned to 3.9 in places by now, 3.8 and 3.9. But 3.10 is right around the corner, and all sorts of kind of cool new features that are coming out, and a lot of new tools that are integrated with that. So one of the problems around Python, though, is all these packages and dependencies that you have, and how to manage them all, and how do you deal with conflicts and so on. Because you can install them at the system level, you can install them locally in a virtual environment. So you can create all these multiple virtual environments, and you can do pip installs here and there, and so on. It gets a little bit unruly. And so the Python community has created a new tool to help manage this, and it's called pipenv, P-I-P-E-N-V. And it's meant to really replace two things. It's meant to replace pip for doing your installs of Python packages, and it's meant to replace virtual env, virtual environments, for creating these little Python bubbles around each project. So I wanted to show you pipenv and kind of demo that a little bit and show you why it might be useful. I do think it's much more workable than what we've been using so far. So let me create a file and test.py. I'll do that. I'll open up a terminal at the bottom here. And I'm in my folder. So I'm in my development folder. I'm in a pipenv demo directory. And so the way that I can initially install, and I only need to install this one time to my system, is I can say python 3 m pip install pip env. And I should get that this is already installed here locally. Yep, already satisfied. So that's good. From here, now I can, this is this one tool that I can use in every single project, everywhere I am. And the way that I invoke it is just pip env, and I ask for the shell. And the shell will produce my virtual environment. So creating a virtual env for this project. So here it is. Can get the full gory readout here. Here's the pip file using Python 3.8 to create a virtual environment. So it's showing all the status of that, successfully created it, and it has a virtual env location. So it sort of keeps track of this hidden in a .local file in my home directory. And it creates a pip file. And so what it does is creates this pip file that contains a manifest of what is related to this project. And if you've ever worked in Node or NPM or anything like that, you will recognize this format. This is sort of documentation of what's going on. And so when we install some packages in a second, you're going to see this little area get populated. And why don't we just go ahead and do that? I'll clear this screen, and I can say, so let's say I just have some packages and I want them. I can say pip env install bodo 3 and requests, and that's good enough for now. So installing bodo 3, it's going to go through the whole tree, and these are going to be uniquely installed related to just this directory, but I don't have to have a virtual environment that I activate and deactivate and so on. So you can see now my pip file has been changed. So now I have bodo taking the latest version of bodo 3, the latest version of requests. And you'll notice here, after solving any dependencies and requirements and so on, it creates another file called pipfile.lock. And I can clear that and minimize this. And you'll see pipfile.lock is a long JSON file that gives exactly the version of every single thing. Bodo 3, it's 1.17.43. Bodo core, 1.20.43. Certify, Chardet, Jameis path, and so on, 281. So these are all, this is like a manifest, a listing of exactly the versions that I'm using with all the SHA hashes and everything to verify that. URL lib3, and so on. So in a way, you can think of the pip file.lock as an exact tracking of the exact versions that I'm using for my code right now, whereas the pip file just sort of gives me the generic versions in an abstract sense. It just says, not versions, but just the generic packages. Yeah, Boto 3 the latest, request the latest. Why is that important is that we don't any longer need a requirements.txt file. Instead, we would just use the pip file and the pip file.lock. And we would just ship that around with any package solution that we have. And those become our requirements files that we can run off of. So all you would ever need is pipenv. Let me show you a couple more things about that. So for this particular project, I'll just type pipenv and you'll see the commands. So you can check things, you can clean things, you can graph it, install, uninstall, sync, and so on. So for instance, I can say pipenv graph. And this is going to show me every package that I have installed, Boto 3 and requests. But then it shows me a tree of their dependencies like this, and then those dependencies of those dependencies. So then Python date utility, well, that requires 6. JMIS path, S3 transfer requires Boto core, but that requires JMIS path, which requires Python date util, which requires 6, and so on. So this shows me a full, full schedule of everything that's been loaded here, and then I can do, I could do a clean, which removes anything that's not in the pip file.lock. This is a fantastic feature. I can pipenv check. This will automatically use a web service to check if there are any security vulnerabilities related to any of the packages that I have installed in this library. So it's doing a little bit of security vetting for me. When I want to leave the shell, I just say exit, and I'm back in my normal prompt. And as long as I come back to this directory, which my system is keeping track of, if I want to get back in that virtual environment again, I just say pip env shell, and I'm back there again. So it doesn't create a new virtual environment. It recognizes there's already one there. It reactivates it, and you can tell that I've activated because it's got these parentheses at the beginning. So pipenv is just a super useful new tool. I think it's really going to replace pip. If you've ever seen the difference between pip and pip3 and confusion around that and where you're installing things and so on, this really makes great clarity out of that. So that's a little tip for the day. Thanks.